So they just did this interview over at GamesRadar with one of the design directors on Jedi Survivor, and it looks like that you're not actually going back in terms of abilities. You're going to keep the abilities that you got in Fallen Order, as well as then just adding on top of that to represent the fact that Cal is no longer that fresh-faced Padawan that he was during Jedi Fallen Order. Now, this intrigues me to no end because one of the things I've talked about multiple times. If you've ever heard me talk about Jedi Fallen Order, I've played it 3 times all the way through. I've streamed one of those play sessions all the way through, and I've done some videos about some other playthroughs. I have said that the game progression in Jedi Fallen Order is some of the best I've ever seen, period, hands down. The way that you start off in that game, where you really only have some very basic force abilities, and then over time, as you progress through the game, you're unlocking his memories and getting access to these abilities that were locked away through trauma. And you progressively get stronger and stronger and stronger. I think by the time you're 60% of the way through that game, depending on whether or not you've done a completionist run or not, you start to really feel like, you've got everything that you need to be a, really amazing Jedi. And to know that going into the new game, into Survivor, we've kept that feeling of Cal being a Jedi, in sort of the prime of his, training, is really cool. Because where we leave off with Cal Kestis at the end of Jedi Fallen Orders, he's come back into his own. He's not a Jedi Knight, but he's also not a Padawan anymore. But he's got a full, a range of abilities. And you feel very powerful. I mean, like, by the time you're like 60, 70% of the way through that game, you definitely feel like you're a badass. Like, being able to force push entire groups of mobs, force pull mobs, pull things into you and slice them down, slow mobs, do all these different cool things. I think it really speaks to, the beauty of that game's progression and the design flow that goes into making it feel like it's a natural, progression from a character who's nobody to somebody who's really powerful. Now that's hard to do if you're coming into a game where you've already got all of those abilities and they already have those at your disposal. So this interview was really insightful to me because it talks a little bit about what they've done to try to mirror what they did with the first game while not taking away anything that you earned during Jedi Fallen Order. So let's just dive into this here because I think this is a very fascinating interview, and I came across this afternoon and wanted to get this out to you guys. So it says while many sequels are prepared to bump their characters' power levels right back down, Jedi Fallen Order was all about Cal's journey to repair his relationship with the Force. And in an interview with GamesRadar Plus accompanying the Survivor preview, design director Jason DeHarris and senior director of production Kasumi Shishido explain how they balance the need to start fresh with the baseline of Cal's ability. So they've got this quote here that says, "We knew we wanted his skills to continue in Survivor, and that was one of the challenges. Enemies had to be made challenging, but Cal still needed his existing powers. As they say here, we had to kind of tweak enemies to handle his new powers, the force push and all that stuff that you gained during Fallen Order from the start. We didn't want to take away any of those moves because they feel good. I don't know why that just happened. You don't go backwards and feel like a Padawan. It has to feel that the power level is the same, but also you have to reach another level." So Shishido adds, "It's been 5 years since Jedi Fallen Order, and we want the player to feel like Cal has been through a lot. He's no longer a Padawan. So when you come back and pick up that controller, we want to make sure that it's accessible for people who haven't played Fallen Order. That's kind of tied into the tutorial. But at the same time, you would have those powers from the very beginning, and you could still develop. Cal's not a Jedi Knight. That's very important to note here. They're making the distinction that he's actually not a Jedi Knight. He's no longer a Padawan, but he's not a Jedi Knight. However, but he's not Yoda. He hasn't mastered everything yet, so there's still a lot of things that he can learn. And so it's a balance of not making him too powerful from the get-go, but there's still a lot of progression from beginning to end. The key, according to DeHarris, has been iteration. They say here a lot of tweaks to enemy design, new enemies that complement some of your powers or whatever powers you get in the future. It's not like you're just going to push every enemy and they always die. There is, however, a baseline to consider. The Stormtrooper says we make sure the Stormtroopers are always going to get wrecked, so we have a base. We know where to start from, even on a sequel. I love that thought because Stormtroopers are there to be wrecked. Like you, they're like the cannon fodder. Like nobody cares if you're gonna, push a bunch of Stormtroopers off the bridge. They're meant to be there to provide that instant gratification in terms of the gameplay. So it'll be more interesting in terms of what they're doing with the bosses. And we've seen some amazing stuff during the preview footage where, Cal's fighting special monsters, dual wielding lightsabers, so on and so forth. And we've seen the companion system during the last trailer that came out a little while ago, where he's going to be fighting with some of his companions now. So it looks like they're definitely adding to the flavor of what this character is going to bring. But what's very interesting to me is the timeline here, because we are picking up with Cal 5 years where we left off with him after Jedi Fallen Order. And 5 years is quite a long time. I mean, I can think about the things that I've learned in 5 years, and looking at someone like Cal, where you've got the whole universe at your disposal and the Force. I mean, the things that you could learn in 5 years are pretty infinite. Um, what they got here for their preview? We're gonna open this up real quick. Take a sip of coffee while that's loading. Oh, it's prompting me to do their little cookies. I don't care about your cookies. Star Wars Jedi Survivor improves on its Fallen Order Forerunner in just about every way. This was published a few hours ago. I'm recording this, by the way, on April 3rd at 2:30 my time, Mountain Time. Well, it's not Mountain Time, my time. It's 3:30 Central Time. Anyway, it says here in Star Wars Survivor, this is I reviewed this post a few hours ago. Said, I'm biding my time watching a large orange beast known as a biomall take a group of stormtroopers. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. He has a new force confusion ability, it says here, able to influence a beast for a short time and turn it on nearby enemies. Rising from its slumber, he was able to control a biomod to attack some stormtroopers. Then it talks here about him using the dual-wielding lightsaber stance to deliver a flurry of hits. It says every movement from Cal feels more fluid than his previous outing in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, carried with a confidence the protagonist didn't have before. He has clearly grown from the Padawan he once was, and his connection to the Force is stronger than ever. While the combat itself is very familiar, as someone who recently dived into Jedi Fallen Order, it's plain to see through my time with Survivor that just about everything has been built upon with new force abilities, additional stances, a wealth of cosmetic customization options, and the introduction of a new means of traversal, which I think is that, well, we've seen multiple essences of that with the double jump and then the force pull, being able to like pull yourself through the air, and then of course the grappling hook and all sorts of other stuff that we've got here. It says here the game feels bigger in every sense, and the new powers that have been brought in to encourage different approaches in combat mirror that. So this is part of the same interview here. Says this is from DeHara. Said we wanted to introduce new powers that would make you approach encounters in different ways. So that's kind of our high level goal as designers. Push and pull. You could do different things to different enemies. You can play a certain way, or an encounter may end faster, stuff like that. So more agency for the player to approach encounters in different ways. I think that was always kind of the goal, and we see what power works and what doesn't. We work with Lucasfilm and make sure it feels authentic where it can. I don't want to spoil too much stuff here. There are some screenshots and stuff in here. I've been trying really hard to avoid spoilers because I was on TikTok earlier today. I was scrolling through TikTok and somebody started talking about like the new planet where you start off, and I was like, no, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. So it's very interesting to me from a design standpoint that they're not taking things away. They're just adding to it. They're layering. I'm very intrigued how they're going to do this, because as much as I loved the progression in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, I want to see if they can match that with this game, given that you're not starting from zero this time. You're starting from a different baseline. How is that going to transcend and translate into gameplay? Looking forward to it. Let me know your thoughts as well. Drop them down in the comments below. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Support if you can with super chats on live streams and premieres. Super thanks on uploads and YouTube shorts. Don't forget memberships here on the channel, as well as our Patreon page. Discord's down below. Hopefully we'll see some of our other places playing games with us in our community. Until next time, everybody, stay safe and may the Force be with you.